Since I've hit 1,000 subscribers, I've decided to celebrate with a series about the Thunderbird machines. If you haven't seen the first part yet, I suggest you go back and watch it. I'll leave a link to it up there for you. So before I start, full disclosure, Thunderbird 4 is my absolute favourite. And Gordon, well, he's my favourite Tracy brother. So let's dive in, shall we? So Thunderbird 4, well, it's International Rescue's very own submarine, piloted by Gordon Tracy. And like all the best submarines, it's yellow. It's 30 foot long by 11 foot wide and weighs in at 30 tonnes. It's powered by twin atomic fusion reactors, and these feed its main propulsion system. And this consists of 6 reversible axial flow impellers and its main turbo drive, which consists of 2 axial flow turbines, although these are only capable of providing forward thrust. On the surface, it's got a maximum cruising speed of 40 knots, but it's when it submerges, that's when it really shines, because then it can reach its maximum underwater speed, and that is 160 knots. And yeah, okay, this isn't Stingray fast, but it's still pretty rapid, especially for something as small as Thunderbird 4, that's really quick. And it's got a maximum dive depth of 30,000 feet. All of the rescue equipment that it carries is stored in its nose section. This consists of the iconic floodlights at the front, which are articulated, a set of magnetically tipped hydraulic rams, useful when trying to rescue a Martian probe, a harpoon gun which is capable of delivering emergency oxygen supplies, or, most famously, tranquilizer gas, a laser cutter which comes in very useful when you want to rescue a stranded passenger jet, and a missile launcher. Now this is normally used for demolition purposes, but also comes in quite handy when the hood, for instance, wants to sneak up behind you. So Thunderbird 4 is piloted by my favourite of all the Tracy brothers, Gordon. Now he's named after a real world hero and astronaut, Gordon Cooper, and in universe he's born on Valentine's Day in the year 2043. But unlike his brothers, he didn't want to join the astronaut corps. He went and joined the World Aquanaut Security Patrol, or WASP for short. That's right, Gordon, he's mates with Troy Tempest. He even lived at Marineville. So during his time at WASP, he spent an entire year living in a bathysphere. He did this because he was studying underwater farming techniques. He also invented the underwater breathing gear for Stingray, and of all of the Tracy brothers, he's easily the most likeable. He's got the best sense of humour out of the lot of them. He's constantly playing pranks and tricks with them. He really enjoys roasting Alan because Alan's got feels for Tintin. But I think he provides a really good foil for Virgil, because Virgil is really stiff and he's really proper and he's very introverted. And this is the complete opposite to Gordon. And given the fact that Gordon is actually listed as Thunderbird 2's co-pilot, this provides an avenue for a lot of entertainment between the two of them. But I think the biggest thing in Gordon's personality in terms of development happens off screen, because we learn that he was involved in a pretty serious speedboat accident. Because like you do, you're poodling along at 400 miles an hour and you crash your speedboat. But it's this crash that leads to Gordon's maturity. He's still very heroic, he's still quite impetuous at times, and he's still very much the second youngest brother. But he's far more of a man than Alan is. Alan is still a boy, whereas Gordon has very much matured into adulthood, at least mentally. I think this is best demonstrated in the film because, well, Alan throws a right tantrum because he don't get to go to a nightclub. Well, Gordon is spoken to quite harshly by Jeff at the beginning of that film, and Jeff's like, well, no, you ain't going on the mission, I need you back here. And yeah, he's a little bit upset about it, but he pretty quickly gets over it, where Alan just gets back and throws a wobbly and just goes straight to bed over it. He's by far the most sophisticated out of the 2 younger brothers. And this is explored further in the Reimagined series because we got this whole love interest thing going on with Lady Penelope, sort of finally doing justice to the original Gordon, because in that series, Lady Penelope finally meets her match, and it's Gordon. He's also an expert marksman. Out of all the Tracy brothers, he's by far the crack shot, and given the fact the Tracy brothers are properly tooled up everywhere they go, including 24,000 miles from Earth on a space station, this is quite a handy skill. Gordon loves water sports of all kinds as well. He's an expert water skier, he's an expert scuba diver, and he's actually an Olympic gold medalist. That's right, Gordon's got an Olympic gold medal in the 100 metres butterfly. But really, the thing I love about him most is that he's got the biggest personality out of all of the brothers, and he's the funniest as well. So in the real world, Gordon is voiced by David Graham, and we need to take a minute with this one because he is a legend. So in Thunderbirds, he voiced tons of supporting characters, but also a lot of main characters as well. So he voices Kirano, Tintin's dad, Gordon, obviously, but he also voiced Brains and Parker. And if you say to anybody, name a Thunderbirds character, it's going to be one of them two. It's going to be Brains or Parker. And whatever way you cut this, Thunderbirds is culturally significant. And them two, well, they are significant characters in a culturally significant show. But outside of Thunderbirds as well, he has done some really iconic stuff. Doctor Who, for instance, he voiced Daleks in the original Dalek serial. He also voiced the Mechanoids in The Chase. He also appears on screen in the serial The Gunfighters. And more recently, he provides the voice of Peppa Pig's grandfather, Grandad Pig, and he reprised the role of Parker in the Reimagined series. This man is a legend, and he's been entertaining my family for 4 generations now. And I think it's shocking that he's never picked up any awards in the New Year's Honours list. But before I move on any further, please hit the like and subscribe button. Also, if you want, give me a follow on Facebook or X/Twitter. I'll put the links in the description below. Anyway, back to it. So the team behind Thunderbirds, they was really great at reusing stuff, but they was really great at disguising it as well. They was also really good at kit bashing and all. But anyway, I find it really tricky finding little bits of sets and props and stuff that they reuse, and it's because, like I said, they're really good at hiding it. But having said that, I think I spotted Lady Penelope wearing one of Marina's cast-offs in the episode The Cham Cham. But for some reason, maybe it's because I'm paying more attention to it because I love Thunderbird 4 so much, well, in the episodes that it features in, they reuse loads of stuff. For instance, Gordon's wetsuit. Well, that belonged to Troy Tempest first, and yeah, I know, in universe, Thunderbirds are going to use the best kit, and Wasp are going to have the best underwater gear. But yeah, that particular costume is reused time and time again. But more than that, in Operation Crash Dive, I'm pretty sure I spotted Stingray's console. In the episode A Day of Disaster, there's that fantastic scene where Fab 1 is demolishing the warehouse. Well, the backdrop to that, that's Stingray's pen. That's Pen 3, Stingray. But I think most iconically, it's Thunderbird 4's puppet-sized model that we see the most of. In what is possibly the best 2 episodes of Captain Scarlet, Lunaville 7 and Crater 101, we get the iconic Moonmobile, the famous jumping contraption that they use to get about between the different Lunaville bases, and the Moon Tractor as well, which is most famously used for planting the bomb on the Mysteron base. Outside of Thunderbirds, that Moonmobile, that is just one of the greatest and most iconic Gerry Anderson machines going. I think we even see it in a background shot for Space 1999. And the interiors of these machines, well, that's just a redress of Thunderbird 4. Now, I've been looking forward to talking about this for a while. I couldn't do it in the last episode because it was about Thunderbird 5. One of the ingredients to Thunderbirds, one of the things that makes it great, are those just absolutely fabulous launch sequences. Now, we'll discuss these further when I make my Thunderbird 2 episode, because as far as the ingredients to a really good Thunderbirds episodes go, these are very important. Fortunately for me, Thunderbird 4 has got not one, but 2 genuinely iconic launch sequences. So it's got an emergency launch sequence. When Thunderbird 2 is incapacitated, they will launch straight from Pod 4 and it will make its way out of the hangar, along the runway and straight into the ocean. We only see this in one episode. We see it in the episode Terror in New York City. And you do know this happens in episode 4. We don't actually get to see the proper launch sequence until episode 6. Yeah, we see the emergency launch sequence before we see the proper one. Because episode 4 is Terror in New York City and episode 6 is A Day of Disaster. So how do we deploy Thunderbird 4 under normal circumstances? Well, Virgil will pilot Thunderbird 4 to the danger zone. He will land next to a body of water. Pod 4's flap will open, a ramp will extend, and Thunderbird 4 will blast straight into the sea. or lake or river or whatever. But also, if a more suitable option is not available, Thunderbird 2 will simply drop the pod straight into the sea, and from there the standard launch procedure would occur. It's absolutely amazing to watch. It's so imaginative, and I've got to be honest with you, I have not seen anything from before it or after it that is that cool. This launch sequence literally revolutionised bath time for me. So what is it then? What is it about Thunderbird 4? Why is it my favourite? Why is it so enduringly popular? Well, yes, it's got that amazing launch sequence, but really there's two massive factors here that need to be addressed. Firstly, Thunderbird 4, despite being the smallest Thunderbird, has the biggest personality. And this is very deliberate, by the way. So Gerry Anderson was very aware of the limitations that working with marionettes sort of poses. So a very deliberate choice was made earlier on during the production of Thunderbirds that, well, it was going to be all about the machines. As often as they could, they would draw the viewer's attention to the machines, because it's much more easy to get a model to look a bit natural than it is a marionette. So as such, we get a Thunderbird machine that is given a personality, and that personality will match the pilot. And that's done because it makes the transition easier between the two of them. And out of all of the Thunderbird machines, when it gets into action, Thunderbird 4 works the hardest because it can't fall back on its giant size like Thunderbird 2, and it's not as fast as Thunderbird 1. So it's got this personality. It's cheeky. It's fun. It tries hard. It's the little engine that could. It's got far more gadgets than Thunderbird 1, and it does a lot more towards saving people's lives than Thunderbird 2 does, at least in the episodes that it appears in. And we see this often in Thunderbirds. Thunderbird 1, for instance, will turn up and land and not do nothing. Thunderbird 2 will turn up and land, and its pod vehicles will do all the work. But Thunderbird 4 has to do both. It has to have that fantastic launch sequence, then it has to go to work, and it has to work hard. It seemingly has to prove itself. And combined with Gordon's character, as a child, it is really relatable. Now, I think this is summed up best by a story one of my friends told me. I reached out to her on Twitter and I was like, look, I need some help with this. What is it about Thunderbird 4? And she told me this story. She said she was a little girl and she's watching the episode Terror in New York City. And the bit at the end, when the building is collapsing and it looks like Thunderbird 4's been crushed, it made her cry. As a little girl, she felt such an affinity with this machine that it brought her to tears the thought of it being destroyed. And when it transpired that Thunderbird 4 was indeed safe, she said she was weeping tears of joy. No other Thunderbird machine gets you like that, because no other Thunderbird machine has got that kind of personality. None of them are as relatable as Thunderbird 4. And it's also worth noting as well, in the same episode as that, Thunderbird 2 gets shot down, and you don't really care. Yeah, you're a little bit annoyed at the Navy for doing it, but you're mostly annoyed at the inconvenience that it's caused, because it stops Thunderbird 4 doing its job. And yeah, even as a grown-up, watching the Reimagined series, in the episode where Gordon manages to trash it, I was like properly jarred off over that for like a fortnight. And in actual fact, I need to take a minute here, because you guys need to go and follow this friend of mine on Twitter/X, because she has got one of the greatest and most extensive collections of Thunderbirds models I have ever seen. And this stuff is like museum quality. It is that good. I will often use images from her collection in my videos. Her name is @LeahRebeccaUK, but I will put a link to her profile in the video description for you. And me and Mrs. Sci-Fi refer to her home as like the Museum of Awesome Things. So yeah, there's that. There's the fact that it's so much fun. And it's got so much personality, and it's so hard working, and it's so relatable. But, as I said, there are two major factors at play here. So you're going to have to bear with me a bit here, because this is going to take some explaining. So there are two very distinct types of Thunderbirds episodes. You have the spy thriller, the espionage episode, whether it be industrial espionage or the Hood up to some shenanigans trying to steal the secrets of the Thunderbirds. And then there is the disaster type episode, where some natural or man-made disaster occurs and international rescue must save the day. And yes, there is a lot of cross-pollination going on here. You will often get espionage leading to disaster, or the Hood during an act of espionage, creating a disaster which leads to international rescue being summoned. But there is a very distinct formula to these disaster episodes. And the formula is this: an accident will happen, international rescue will be called, we will get, as I said, those fabulous launch sequences, international rescue will arrive on the scene, some time will be spent raising the tension, and trust me, Thunderbirds is amazing for this. They've got a habit of just like dwelling on like a fraying rope or something, and you can feel that tension rising along with the jeopardy. At this point, Thunderbird 2 will deploy some absolutely amazing vehicle. They will use this technology and they will save the day. And that is the formula. That's what makes those episodes great. It's also why the two films come in for so much criticism, because for some, I don't know reasons, artistic or whatever, they just eschewed so much of what makes a great Thunderbirds episode. But if you take that formula and you add Thunderbird 4 to it, you've now got 2 of the launch sequences. You've now got 3 Tracy brothers and 3 Thunderbird machines on screen. In short, you've got more of the secret sauce. Now, yes, you could argue that the Mole and Firefly are as iconic as Thunderbird 4. They appear in nearly as many rescues, and they also are important enough to appear in the closing credits. But importantly, they lack the personality of Thunderbird 4. They lack its soul. They lack everything I mentioned earlier on. So what's happening here is something really special. You're taking what is already just an amazing piece of children's television, probably the most excitement you're going to get in 50 minutes, and you're elevating it to being a great episode. It is that and everything else I've said that makes Thunderbird 4 my favourite, and it makes it the greatest fictional submarine of all time. And yeah, I know there's plenty of scarsers that are disagreeing with me right now, and plenty more Erwin Allen fans as well. But hey, that's what this channel's about. It's just a personal view, so don't get too aggressive with me in the comments. Anyway, those are my thoughts on Thunderbird 4. It's my favourite, and it should be yours as well. But let me know in the comments what you think.